Thank you. Mr. Doggett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thanks to our witnesses. I'm for a dramatic increase in corporate taxes. We have to increase taxes on the wealthy. For getting our guys tax cut, we've got to cut spending, which they're going to resist. Where does the tax revenue come from? Corporations and the wealthy. And when they start squealing, we have a conversation. We're all partners in this. Everybody's going to take a little pain. Those are not my words. They're not a message from the Progressive Caucus, but rather the recent comments of Steve Bannon, sometime Trump advisor, and about as MAGA as you can get. He reiterated them this very morning. This committee has got to decide, will it maintain its traditional allegiance to the Plutocrats or help working families, some of whom are represented here on today's panel? It's encouraging that for the first time, we see at least some elements of the Republican Party that recognize tax reality, that you just can't cut revenue and add without adding to the national debt, and you cannot just pour some magical dust on it, calling it changing a line, and ignore what you've done. Spiraling national debt has been something that some members of this committee have previously said was a national security crisis. Well, it's a crisis just as much if you do it through more tax breaks, more largesse for the billionaire class, for the multinational corporations that are paying a tax rate today that is a fraction of that paid by Main Street businesses and by most Americans. And there's further trouble for working families in the plans that Republicans are advancing. Only last week, President-elect Trump told Americans that on food, we can expect, quote, some pretty drastic price reductions. I think all of us would wish him well on that and eagerly await his fulfilling his promise, oft repeated, to lower drastically the price of food. Most economists, however, are concerned that his policies will have exactly the opposite effect. Indeed, the minutes of the last Federal Reserve meeting suggest that we may already be paying higher interest rates because of their concern that Trump will stoke inflation. This is especially true regarding his declaration that, quote, the most beautiful word in the dictionary is tariff, and it's my favorite word. Well, in Texas, a Trump grocery tariff tax, which he can impose as soon as next Monday, will likely increase grocery prices on most every vegetable and most fruits that we buy. Overall, Republican eagerness for a trade war that no one will win, beginning with the imposition of multiple Trump tariff taxes, a regressive form of taxation, and the resulting retaliation by other countries, and Republican reliance on tariff taxes to offset their tax breaks for the super wealthy, will continue to shift the tax burden to some of the very type of businesses that are represented on this panel. Indeed, one recent study found that if the tax breaks were combined with the tariff increase, that the impact would be that 80% of Americans would be in worse condition. And let's not forget that the last time retaliation occurred from Trump tax tariffs, that farmers had to be paid billions of dollars in welfare because of their lost foreign markets. Now, the impact of the 2017 Trump tax scam was to add about $2 trillion to our deficit, and now it's proposed that we add another $4 or $5 trillion. The effect on Americans is that 7.8% was the tax rate paid by the top multinationals in 1 year. Last year, the pharma industry didn't, as a group, pay any tax whatsoever. But meanwhile, a working mother with 2 children who was paid the average rate was paying a tax rate of 20%. That's not fair. And I'm glad that Mr. Bannon recognized it. I hope more of our Republicans will recognize that these large profitable corporations need to pay their fair share, and so do the wealthiest few in our country. The biggest loser of their plan overall will be our debt, but the impact that that has on the solvency of Social Security and Medicare and other investments is also very critical. So as we move forward, we need to consider all of these impacts and look for a tax code that is more fair for working Americans and less gift to those at the top. And I yield back.
Mr. Smith.